All right, welcome back to the channel. Axel Stein with MMG Yachts, and today we're going to be discussing hybrid systems on board. So hybrid systems on yachts have been around for a couple decades now on the bigger boats, but it gained a little bit of traction maybe 10 years ago when more and more super yachts started installing electric pods on their boats, kind of like the cruise ships do, and just powering those with diesel generators on board. But more recently, even the smaller spectrum of the yacht world has been dwelling in the hybrid propulsion because the whole world is calling for more efficiency, less pollution, and just being greener overall. You might wonder, what is hybrid? What does it mean? Just like the hybrid cars, it means the vehicle gets its power to propel itself from more than one power source. So in the case of yachts, most of the time it comes from diesel and from electric batteries, lithium ion, most of the time batteries. Yeah, aside from diesel, there's other forms of fuel such as solar panels. There's hydro energy you can sometimes harvest. There's HVO, which is green diesel. It comes from organic matter rather than petroleum. And a combination of these things to charge batteries and get the electric motors to move the boat is actually, it's great. I think in 10 years time it's going to be very, very efficient. So what are the pros of hybrid systems on yachts? Well, of course, less pollution, less CO2, less engine hours. I'll explain later how that happens. You can actually have less combustion engines on board if it's a larger boat, and you save a lot of money on fuel. What are the cons of having these systems? Well, mostly that batteries are very heavy, they're very expensive, and the technology is evolving so fast that they can become obsolete, within the time frame of your ownership. So it's a sensitive subject because yes, you can replace them with newer and better technology, but these boats are taking tons and tons of batteries. It's not an easy ordeal to replace it all. Okay, so for yachts, we'll get started with the two systems there are available. Remember, these systems they're modular. You can, depending on what your needs are or what that manufactured things they need for their boats, you can play around with these things, and you can add and subtract components as you see fit. There are two main types of systems. The first one is a serial hybrid system, which does not use diesel engines to power the boat, to move it, but it only uses electric motors to do so. So the way that works is you have two electric motors turning the propellers, and then you have diesel generators that create the electricity to power the battery that's powering those electric pods or even shaft propellers. The advantages to this is that generators are usually very efficient because they can run always at the best load that they can provide. So essentially, you can always be at optimal load on the combustion engine while the boat's moving forward. Another great thing about serial hybrid is that you can go full electric mode for a while, until your battery's depleted. But usually, since it's used on displacement and semi-displacement boats at slow speeds, you can actually get quite a while of, you can probably assume to get a couple hours of travel on battery power alone. The serial hybrid systems do have larger battery banks for that reason, so you don't depend as much on the generator. But again, they're limited to slower, or I guess, displacement speedboats. You cannot put a serial hybrid on a planing hull unless it's a very small craft, because it's the battery capacity you would need would be astonishing. Okay, the other type of hybrid system for yachts would be called a parallel hybrid system. And this is by far the most common one we see out in the market. This one, the parallel system, does use traditional diesel main propulsion engines and also has diesel generators. But the main difference is that the electric motors are in line on the same drive line as the main engines. So what this does was this allows is that you can have various modes of operation, right? You can have the boat be propelled just by the electric motors, disengaging the clutch on the mechanical motor. You can have them both working in parallel, which would be if you need maximum performance, if you need to go very fast or need to accelerate very fast. You can have those same electric motors become generators themselves by being turned by the main diesel engine, which provides fast charging to the battery. And this is where the engine hour ordeal comes in. The cool thing about these parallel systems is that you can essentially have one diesel engine running, propelling the boat, and as it's turning that electric motor becomes a generator, which is sending power to the other electric motor and to the battery bank. So that you can have one diesel engine running the whole boat, propelling the boat forward, and creating enough battery to work on the hotel load of the boat, which is the electricity you need for lights, AC, and the rest of the boat. The parallel hybrid system also uses a smaller battery bank than the serial one because, again, you do have the redundancy of more internal combustion power. And since you do have those two big main engines, you can't afford to add on all the weight of a huge, power pack. Even if you want to go top speed, the electric motor is aiding the diesel motor, and it's lowering the load factor that the diesel motor is running at, even if it's turning full RPM. So sometimes, usually when you're turning full RPM, let's say it's 2300, you're on 100% load on the motors. If you have that electric motor aiding it, it can lower that load factor by at least 10%. So you'll be at wide open, but your motors will only be working about 90%. Which is good for the longevity of the motor, and it's also good because it burns a little bit less fuel that way. You can also gain about 3 or 4 knots top end, and you can increase your cruising speed to keep that 80% load on the diesel. Plus the electric, you can increase your cruise by 3-4 knots, which is a very big deal, when you're doing long passages, say Miami to the Exumas. So the big players in the marine propulsion industry consist of, Volvo Penta with their IPS systems, and sometimes they have shafts as well. You have MTU Marine Diesel from Germany. You have MAN Diesel from Germany as well. You have Caterpillar from the US. And they've all pretty much adapted their own completely, custom to you or to that specific boat hybrid system that goes from helm to prop at a push of a button. You can choose what mode you want to go in. If you want to go full electric to leave port, if you want to, charge your battery using one main engine, or if you want to use the main engine to propel the boat while you use a generator to charge battery. Whatever the case may be, there's a infinite, not an infinite. I would say there's about 10 to 12 choices you can make on how to run the boat having a parallel system. These companies have all come out with, MTU has their own, MAN has their own, Volvo has their own, Cat has their own, but they all essentially work the same way. They're all parallel systems, which have the electric motors in the same driveline as the main engine. Aside from these engine manufacturers, there's a company called eMotion that is basically selling a package you can retrofit into your current boat, or you can make a new build with, that installs a parallel or a serial hybrid system into your boat. I think it's a great business because there's a lot of people that don't necessarily want to build a new boat, but do want to be more efficient. If they have the space available on board, they can essentially add, at least a medium-sized lithium-ion battery, 2 electric motors on each shaft, or a single shaft if it only has one, and they can reduce their emissions and their fuel by at least 30% that way. There's a few demonstrations on YouTube about eMotion, and I think they've done a pretty essential job at it. My predictions are that in the next 10 years, more and more boats are going to be coming out with these hybrid systems, provided by the engine manufacturers, just because it's gonna, the pros are going to outweigh the cons soon with the weight of the batteries and the cost. and you'll be able to instantly, reduce people's expenses on fuel and CO2 emissions by, 10 to 30% in some cases. If you have a fast boat, you can make it go faster. If you have a slow boat, you can burn a lot less fuel. There's no real size limit to how big a boat needs to be a hybrid boat. There's companies like Green Line Boats that make low 40-foot boats up all the way to about 60 or 70. They've been doing it for numerous years now. And then you can have a boat like a big Larson, 400-foot boat that is also a hybrid boat, or like Savannah, the Fed ship, which was one of the first full hybrid boats. And I think it's great that it's not specific to the big boat market, because to make the impact you need to make, it needs to appeal to everybody and needs to work on all size boats, right? Well, that's about it for today. I know it's short and sweet, but I just wanted to give you guys a gist of the different hybrid systems and what's available on the market now. And I think between hydrogen fuel cells and these hybrid diesel electric boats, we're definitely heading the right way in the sense of sustainability. So thank you guys for watching. Take care.